A chill wind cut through the dense fog, swirling around the yellow glow of the streetlights like fingers reaching for something lost. Beneath the haze, Eva stood frozen at the entrance of the cafe, staring at her phone. A message had just arrived, its simplicity a lie wrapped in a dozen suspicions. Her heart thudded violently in her chest as she replayed the message again and again. "Can't wait to see you tonight, my love." The words, so innocent, felt like a slap. Inside the cafe, the murmur of low conversations and clinking cups felt distant, muffled by the storm inside her mind. The ice-cold air nipped at her skin as her fingers trembled, clutching the phone. Her boyfriend, Mark, had always been a mystery. Always kind, but always just out of reach. She could never quite place why. There had been whispers, moments of doubt, and yet, nothing concrete until now. She turned her back to the cafe, stepping into the alley to escape the suffocating feeling. The streets were wet from the previous night's rain, and the air was heavy with the scent of fresh asphalt. Eva's footsteps echoed, steady but fast, as she felt the weight of the phone pressing into her palm, its screen still showing the message, the words unchanged. Something in her gut twisted a cold certainty, an undeniable truth that she wasn't ready to confront. Her world, already unstable, now felt like it was slipping from her grasp. This was the moment it all changed. She'd known Mark for 2 years, and in that time, she had built a life she thought was real. But now, it was unraveling one message at a time. By the time Eva arrived at Mark's apartment, her mind was in turmoil. The message had only been the beginning. It had opened a door to a nightmare she hadn't been prepared for. She stood at the door, her fingers pressing the buzzer, but it felt like she was already sinking, unable to escape the dread that clung to her. He answered quickly, as if he'd been waiting. There was an air of calmness about him, something too controlled, too practiced. Mark's smile was warm, but it didn't reach his eyes. That coldness had always been there, like a shadow lurking just beneath the surface. Eva had ignored it for too long. Now, it seemed as though every red flag she had overlooked was screaming at her. "Hey, you okay?" His voice was casual, almost too casual. He stepped aside to let her in, but she hesitated. Her senses were screaming at her something was wrong. She entered, and the air inside the apartment was thick, unfamiliar. It smelled faintly of cologne, too much of it, as though someone had sprayed it to cover something else. She could feel the heaviness of the place, like a weight pressing down on her chest. Mark led her into the living room, but Eva's eyes immediately locked on the coffee table. A single, forgotten envelope lay on it. She'd seen it before, tucked away in his drawer. But now, it was open, and a stack of papers lay exposed. She felt a coldness crawl up her spine. Her heart skipped a beat as she realized the papers were bills. Bills from a place she didn't recognize, a name she didn't know. Eva's mind raced. Her first instinct was to ask him about it, but the words were stuck in her throat. Instead, she watched him, studying his every movement, every word. She knew something was off, and she wasn't going to let it slide this time. She needed answers. Eva couldn't bring herself to ask about the papers. Not yet. Instead, she stood there, trying to calm the storm inside her. But it was impossible. Her heart raced as the realization set in she had to know the truth. Everything else faded away, leaving only the need for answers. She had to confront him. Mark turned to her, a look of confusion on his face. "Eva, what's going on?" he asked, his voice laced with concern, but there was a hint of something else there, something guarded. She could see it now, clearer than ever before. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I know something's going on, Mark," she said, her voice firm, though her insides trembled. "I need you to tell me the truth. All of it." For a moment, there was silence. The weight of her words hung in the air like a thick fog. Mark opened his mouth, but no words came out. Eva could see the struggle in his eyes, the conflict between wanting to lie and facing the truth. And then, just as she thought she could take no more, he spoke. "I never meant for it to go this far," he whispered, his voice barely audible. In the days that followed, Eva found herself drifting between two worlds, one of normalcy, where she clung to the remnants of her relationship with Mark, and the other, a darker, more paranoid world where everything she saw, heard, and felt was tainted by doubt. She couldn't shake the image of that envelope, those bills she didn't recognize, nor the cryptic confession Mark had barely whispered. "I never meant for it to go this far." Every time she saw him, she looked for signs of guilt, for cracks in the mask of calmness he wore so well. But Mark was a master of control, his exterior flawless, his smiles too perfect. She began to question everything, from the small, insignificant details to the larger, more troubling moments. Why did he always leave his phone face down? Why had he suddenly started staying late at work? Was it just stress, or was it something more? Her suspicions grew like a silent storm, eating away at her sanity. Eva tried to focus on her work, but even the soothing hum of the office air conditioning couldn't calm the buzzing in her head. She looked at the clock again. Mark had promised to meet her for dinner in an hour, but something in her gut told her she couldn't wait. She had to do something now. Without thinking, she grabbed her coat and left the office, her movements swift, almost frantic. Her steps echoed in the empty parking lot, and the cold evening air hit her face, sharp and biting. She didn't know what she was looking for: proof, an answer, something that would make the chaos inside her mind stop. But she was running out of time. And patience. She texted Mark, asking where he was. His reply was immediate, as usual. "Running late, got caught up in a meeting." Eva's heart dropped. She knew he was lying. She just didn't know how to prove it. But she was getting closer. She could feel it. Eva's night only grew darker. She drove to Mark's apartment, her mind racing with questions. When she arrived, the door was slightly ajar. Her heart leapt into her throat. She pushed it open cautiously, trying to calm the panic rising in her chest. The apartment was quiet, eerily quiet. Mark's shoes were by the door, his coat hanging on the hook. Everything appeared normal, but something felt off. She called his name softly, but there was no response. Moving further into the apartment, her eyes darted to every corner, every room. The silence was suffocating. But then, she heard a muffled sound coming from the bedroom. A soft voice, unmistakably not Mark's. Eva's breath caught in her throat as she moved closer. She paused at the door, her hand trembling on the doorknob. She opened it, just a crack, peering inside. There, on the bed, was Mark, lying beside a woman. The woman's face was partially hidden by her hair, but the situation was clear. Eva's world tilted on its axis, the floor beneath her feet feeling like it was dissolving into thin air. She stepped back, feeling as if the very walls were closing in on her. But just as she was about to turn and run, the woman's voice, soft, almost too calm, spoke. "You should have stayed away. Now you know." Eva's heart hammered in her chest as the weight of the words settled into her bones. She had been right. But the confirmation came at a cost she hadn't anticipated. The next few days passed in a blur. Eva felt as if she were drowning in a sea of disbelief and rage. Every time she saw Mark, she couldn't look at him the same way. The man she had loved, the one who had been her anchor, was now a stranger, an imposter in the life she had built. But even as her suspicions turned into cold, hard truths, Eva couldn't let go. She was addicted to the search for answers, desperate for some kind of closure. But the more she dug, the more she found. Hidden accounts, strange numbers, coded messages on his phone, and the recurring name of someone she didn't recognize: Sophie. Sophie, who had been texting him for months. Sophie, whose messages were too intimate, too familiar. Eva found herself standing in front of Mark's apartment again, a strange mix of fear and determination coursing through her. The truth was no longer enough. She wanted him to confess, to face the damage he had caused. Her hand hovered over her phone, ready to dial his number, ready to demand the truth. But before she could press the call button, a text came through. It was from Mark. We need to talk. It was the moment she had been dreading and waiting for. Eva's hands shook violently as the phone buzzed against her ear. Mark had agreed to meet her at a quiet cafe, one they frequented when they first started dating. The nostalgia of the place only heightened the tension. She had waited for this moment for days, knowing she could no longer play ignorant. She had to confront him, to get the truth, no matter how much it hurt. As she sat at the table, her mind replayed everything: the envelopes, the coded messages, the unknown name. Each piece of the puzzle had fallen into place, and yet she still felt unprepared for the answer she would receive. She ran her fingers over the edge of her coffee cup, feeling the cool porcelain against her skin. The warmth of the cafe seemed like a cruel irony now. The world felt distorted, as though she were moving through a haze. Mark arrived, his usual calm demeanor masking the tension that she could now clearly see in his eyes. He sat down across from her, his posture stiff, his hands fidgeting. Eva's stomach churned, the room suddenly feeling too small. She opened her mouth to speak, but her voice faltered. The question that had been gnawing at her for so long finally pushed its way out, her voice trembling. "Mark, who is Sophie?" His face went pale, his eyes darting nervously. For the first time in their relationship, he seemed unsure of himself, vulnerable. It wasn't the reaction she had expected. She had anticipated denial, anger, perhaps an attempt to deflect. But this was different. This was guilt. She watched him, every second stretching into eternity as he struggled for words. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean for it to go this far, Eva." The truth hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Her heart shattered as the weight of his words settled into her bones. The illusion was gone. Mark, the man she had trusted more than anyone, had betrayed her in ways she couldn't have imagined. And now, there was no going back. In the days that followed, Eva was consumed by a sense of betrayal so deep it felt like it had become part of her. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every thought was clouded by what Mark had confessed. Sophie. The lies. The unspoken truth that had been hiding beneath the surface for so long. She avoided Mark's calls, his messages, his attempts to explain. She didn't want to hear it. Nothing he said could undo the damage, and she couldn't bring herself to forgive him. But even as her anger grew, so did something else, something she couldn't quite place. A sense of power. In the past, she had been at Mark's mercy, his warmth and affection the only thing that had made her feel safe. Now, she realized she had a choice. She could walk away, leave him behind and never look back, or she could stay, and try to rebuild the life they had once shared. Eva sat alone in her apartment that evening, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. The city outside her window buzzed with life, but inside, there was nothing but silence. She looked at the empty space around her, the memories of better times haunting every corner. Her phone buzzed again. It was Mark. She didn't answer. Instead, she picked up her purse and walked out the door, her steps slow but steady. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she couldn't stay here. Not with him. Not anymore. The city felt cold as she wandered through the streets, her thoughts a tangled mess of confusion and hurt. But she also felt something else, a sense of clarity. The choice was hers. It had always been. Eva stood in the dim light of her apartment, the weight of her decision settling in her chest. She had walked away from Mark, from everything they had built together, but there was still a part of her that lingered in the past. She couldn't deny that she had loved him, deeply and passionately. But love wasn't enough when trust was shattered beyond repair. Mark had sent her countless messages over the past few days, apologizing, begging her to come back. He promised it would never happen again, that Sophie had been a mistake, a moment of weakness. But Eva didn't believe him. She couldn't. He had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. As the days turned into weeks, Eva's life began to settle into a new routine. She focused on her work, her friends, and most importantly, herself. But every now and then, she would catch herself thinking about Mark, wondering what he was doing, who he was with. And though the thought stung, she knew deep down that she had made the right choice. The past was gone, and there was no going back. The point of no return had passed. Days turned into weeks, and Eva had adjusted to the new rhythm of her life. The storm inside her had finally quieted, replaced by a cold, rational calm. She woke up each morning with a sense of purpose, her routines more refined, her emotions compartmentalized. Mark had vanished from her world, his messages had stopped, and with each passing day, the scars he had left began to heal. But it wasn't over. Eva knew it wasn't. She still carried the weight of betrayal on her shoulders, a silent companion that wouldn't let her forget. The past few weeks had been filled with unanswered questions, ones she had buried deep. Who was Sophie, really? What had Mark been hiding? And most importantly, what was she supposed to do with the pieces of her broken heart? Her work had become her sanctuary, a place where her focus could shift, where the ache of unanswered questions could be forgotten, if only for a while. But even in the quiet of her office, she couldn't escape the lingering feeling that something was about to change again. Her instincts told her that this was only the calm before the storm. Eva's phone buzzed again. This time, she didn't hesitate. She picked it up immediately, her heart racing as she read the name on the screen: Sophie. The message was short but unsettling: asterisk, you've been warned. This isn't over yet. Asterisk, the words froze her in place. The message wasn't just a warning, it was a declaration. Sophie wasn't done. And neither was Mark. The decision was made. Eva had come too far to turn back now. The message from Sophie had been the final push she needed. She knew the time had come to confront Mark once and for all. No more lies, no more uncertainty. She had to see him face to face, to demand the truth, and to finally sever whatever fragile connection remained between them. That evening, she drove to his apartment, her hands gripping the wheel with a force she hadn't realized she possessed. The city streets blurred in the dim headlights, the world around her reduced to nothing more than a series of streetlights and shadowed alleyways. She could feel the weight of her decision with every mile. This wasn't just a conversation. It was the end of everything they had built together, and Eva knew it would change her forever. When she arrived, Mark's apartment was eerily quiet. No lights, no sound. It felt like he was waiting for her, like he had known she would come. She knocked on the door, and when he answered, his face was drawn, his eyes heavy with guilt. The moment of confrontation had arrived. "I want answers, Mark," Eva said, her voice low but firm. "Everything. Now." Mark hesitated, and for the first time, Eva saw him falter. His usual calm composure had cracked, leaving him vulnerable. The silence stretched, but Eva didn't budge. She wasn't leaving until she knew the truth. Finally, Mark spoke. "It's over, Eva. I never wanted this to happen. But Sophie, she was everything I thought I wanted. I'm sorry. I'm not the man you thought I was." Eva's heart broke all over again. The confession, though painful, was a relief. She had needed to hear him admit the truth, even if it was the end of everything. "Goodbye, Mark," she said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. She turned away, walking out of the apartment for the last time. Eva spent the next few weeks in a haze of emotions. The anger, the sadness, the betrayal, all of it seemed to ebb and flow, but one thing remained: the empty space Mark had left behind. She had walked away from him, from the relationship, but it had cost her more than she had anticipated. Her nights were restless, filled with memories of the good times, the love they had shared, and the future they had once dreamed of. But now, the future felt different. Eva had lost something she could never get back: trust. The betrayal had poisoned her, leaving scars that would never fully heal. But with each passing day, she also realized that she had gained something new: strength. The strength to walk away when everything inside her screamed to stay. One night, as she stood at the window of her apartment, the city lights twinkling below, she felt a quiet resolve settle over her. She had given up love, but she had gained something more valuable: her peace. Eva knew she would never be the same, but in some ways, she was finally free. The weeks that followed felt like a dream, one that Eva could neither escape nor fully embrace. She had walked away from Mark, from everything they had built together, and though she knew it was the right decision, the aftermath left her feeling like a part of her had been ripped away. The ache of betrayal, the gaping wound that once consumed her, had now been replaced by a quiet emptiness. But there was peace in that emptiness, peace and freedom. Her work had become her anchor, a place where she could pour her energy, where the world outside her personal life ceased to matter. Every day, she pushed forward, her steps becoming more certain with each passing hour. And yet, as much as she had wanted to leave Mark behind, there were days when his memory haunted her. The smell of his cologne on a stranger, the sound of his voice in a crowded room, the echo of his laughter, it all rushed back in waves that threatened to pull her under. One evening, while walking home from work, Eva noticed a familiar figure in the distance. It was Mark. He was standing under the streetlight, his face hidden in shadow. She stopped in her tracks, the sudden surge of emotions overwhelming her. She had avoided him for weeks, but now, there he was, real and tangible. Her heart raced as memories of their time together flashed before her eyes. But she didn't move toward him. Instead, she took a deep breath, the weight of the past still heavy on her shoulders. She turned and walked away, her step steady, resolute. It was over. Mark was a part of her past now, a chapter she had closed, no matter how difficult the process had been. Time has a way of healing wounds, though it never erases them. As the months passed, Eva found herself slowly adjusting to the world without Mark. She was stronger now, more self-assured, and the emptiness that had once consumed her was gradually replaced with something she had never known before: self-reliance. Her friends noticed the change in her, too. They saw the way she walked taller, smiled more freely, and laughed without hesitation. They congratulated her for being strong, for moving on. But Eva knew the truth. She wasn't strong because she had moved on, she was strong because she had faced the truth. She had confronted her fears, her heartbreak, and had walked away from the man who had broken her. She had rebuilt her life from the pieces he had left behind. One day, as she sat in her favorite cafe, sipping her coffee and watching the world pass by, a realization settled over her. She had become someone new. Someone who could face anything, no matter how painful. She wasn't defined by her past or by the man who had betrayed her. She was defined by her ability to rebuild, to move forward, and to trust herself. Eva looked out the window, watching a couple pass by, their hands entwined. She didn't feel jealousy or anger, only a sense of peace. The journey had been long, but it had led her to a place where she was finally at ease with herself. And for the first time in a long time, she smiled. Life, as it often does, continued to move forward. Eva never forgot the lessons she had learned, but with time, the pain became a distant memory, a faint echo that no longer held power over her. She had faced the betrayal, the hurt, the anger, and she had emerged on the other side, whole again. Her relationships with her friends deepened, her trust in them growing stronger. Her work flourished, and for the first time in years, she felt truly content. There were days when the memory of Mark would creep into her mind, but instead of anger, it was met with a sense of gratitude. She was thankful for the clarity his betrayal had brought her, for the strength she had found within herself. One evening, as she walked through the city, she passed by a street musician playing a soft, melancholic tune on his violin. The music filled the air, carrying with it a sense of longing and reflection. Eva stopped for a moment, closing her eyes, letting the melody wash over her. She thought of the past, of Mark, and of everything that had led her to this moment. The music was a perfect reflection of her journey, sad but beautiful, painful yet healing. She had found peace, not in the absence of pain, but in the understanding that the pain had shaped her. And as the final notes of the violin echoed in the air, Eva smiled softly. She was ready for the next chapter, whatever it held.